right, friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for another Ask WrestleJuice as my news notification goes off. How the Chiefs won the Super Bowl in an overtime thriller. All right, Washington, I don't need to know how they won the Super Bowl in an overtime thriller. That's not the kind of question I'm looking for here at Ask WrestleJuice. I want your questions, and you guys left a bunch of them. Let's go and hop into it because there's a lot going on these days in the world of wrestling. Senor Alien says a week ago, the pro wrestling community were in fear of Rock and Brian Gewirtz being involved in creative. After that press conference, I'll eat crow. Same here. My question is, just how long do you think this long game The Rock is planning for is? I could see this bloodline story going a couple or more years now, as can I. Here's my theory on how this might play out, sort of behind the scenes and in front of the cameras. I think number one, this deal with TKO to be a member of the board of directors is worth a lot of money to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. 30 million is the number that's been sort of out there. I would imagine that's not even the ceiling to what he could make off of this. And if you think about it, 30 million is probably around the kind of money that The Rock would make off of, let's say, a feature film. And if there are incentives down the line, or if this deal has some sort of, which I imagine it does, has some sort of end point, plus he can make money off licensing his name to WWE as well, this could be an endless stream of revenue for The Rock as long as he's providing the kind of value we all sort of figure he can to the WWE. If he's going to be sort of the corporate face of the WWE and still be a very popular figure that appears on their programming, I suspect that the $30 million is probably like just for now money. And there's more of that to be had if he wants to continue this relationship in the future. What does that mean? A lot more bloodline. Now, the thing about what's happening this year is that it perfectly sets up Rock versus Roman in a feud against each other going down the line, probably without the Universal title. I think they're just calling it the WWE Championship at this point. So we're going to refer to it as the WWE Championship from here on out. Which leads me to believe that this year, I would imagine Roman Reigns is probably going to end up losing to Cody Rhodes as my dog tries to figure out what her next maneuver is here on the couch. Roman's probably going to lose to Cody, and Rock will probably see that as Roman having dropped the ball, and that will lead to a Roman face turn, which will lead to Roman versus Rock 1 next year, which will lead to Roman versus Rock 2 the following year. So that's kind of how I see this playing out. I think that when The Rock says he's a long gamer, when Brian Gewirtz is on social media saying this is chapter 1, I don't think WrestleMania is the conclusion of the book or it's the last chapter. I think this is chapter 1 of the great American novel of professional wrestling. And when you include when you backdate the bloodline stuff that we've already seen into this, that's a hell of a story. That's a really long story they could tell. Conversely, it's always possible, although I think not quite as likely, that when we're talking about those 3 years, it's possible that Roman breaks Bruno's record. I think Roman is I think he's like, what is he? How many years does he weigh? I think it's like 20. It's a long way out there. But Roman Reigns with The Rock sort of being his guardian angel, I don't know if that's like an even longer game. I don't know. I get the feeling that they can let this play out as long as they want it to play out because The Rock is a major deal. Did you guys see that WrestleMania XL like teaser thing they made? It looked like it was a goddamn movie trailer. That thing looked amazing. And if that's the direction WWE's headed in, I'm kind of here for it. They got a loaded roster. They've got obviously a pretty decent track record these days of telling stories. So, yeah, man, as far as how long the long game is, it could be years. It could be a really long time. Seaton 7258 says, how do you think Jay, Solo, and Jimmy will play into the Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns main event at Mania, if at all? I don't know. I don't know because it could be the sort of situation where Rock, as sort of corporate Rock, also proud Rock, because he's got that old tree behind him and he's like, hey, this is the biggest main event. Maybe the idea is, hey, man, you were going to face me and there is no way that Bloodline was going to help out facing me. We're not going to go down that route. You keep the Bloodline away. Or maybe even The Rock sort of has a turn where he keeps the Bloodline away from interfering in the match. And that leads to the rift between Roman and The Rock. I'm not sure how they would justify it, given that Rock seemingly has confirmed that what we saw at the press conference was like a heel turn. But I think it's possible. I know people have echoed a sentiment that I had watching this, and that it was sort of playing out the way like Austin, HBK, and Mike Tyson was playing out, how you bring in this big celebrity. He ends up being the enforcer and enforcing. He seems like he's on the bad guy side at first, and then he ends up being on the good guy side. So it could be a variation on that as well. I kind of feel like Solo and Jimmy are just going to get checked by the tribal chief. I'm interested to see how Jay is going to figure into this, because obviously he's a guy who escaped the Bloodline, is now sort of serving time on Jay Island. Drew Curry hits us with a tough one, says, why does my father's love feel conditional? I don't know if this is a troll or if this is a real situation, but hey, man, I don't know. Maybe ask him. B. York says, is the tribal chief set up for The Rock? The Rock is the one guy who's got one setup above the tribal chief, and I think that's like the tribal king setup, because I think like the king of Samoa or somebody like that crowned The Rock like a high chief or a tribal king or king chief. I don't know what it was, but it was something. It was on the little Bloodline poster there. They need to sell that thing, by the way. That'd be kind of cool. Ray Liotta Werewolf says, if you were made into an action figure, what would your two accessories be? I like this response here from JV. Says his dog and a Cody Rhodes wrestle buddy. I can't do better than that. You got to have one of them Burger King Long Boy chicken sandwiches in there as well. But yeah, it can't get better than that one over there, and a Cody Rhodes wrestle buddy. I think that'd be pretty awesome. Maybe like a little Starship Enterprise as well, like a little toy Enterprise or something. Speaking of the Long Boy chicken sandwich, Ian Perry says McNuggets or a BK Long Boy chicken sandwich. Give me the Long Boy, because it has cheese with it if you ask for cheese with it, and mayonnaise. Oh man, those are so good. Hey, I like me some McNuggets though. They're dangerous though, because even if you get 20 of those things, you can rip through those and like still be hungry. Odd Lifestyle says, when the Romans' reign is officially ended and someone else like Cody holds that title, as well as Triple H's era of WWE started, should the title get a design overhaul like the heavyweight titles? Triple H did make a big point of saying, you know, that we're entering into a new era of WWE, and oftentimes that can be symbolized with a new championship. The Ruthless Aggression era, you know, sort of lined up with the new undisputed title that Brock Lesnar was wearing around. You know, like I guess sort of the PG era, the reality era sort of coincided, or whatever Cena's era was, started off with you know, the spinner title. So should Cody's title get a maybe, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I think I like the big network logo title better than, for example, Seth Rollins World Heavyweight Championship. I think I like that. It's sort of an iconic design at this point. I don't think we need to bring back like the winged eagle. Maybe Cody can have some sort of variation version of the title for him. Maybe. I feel like if anybody got their own variation on a title, it should have been Roman Reigns, though the guy's had this title forever. Cody Miles says, which would you prefer, a theme show like Finish the Story at Madison Square Garden, or the Chiefs' Last Stand on the Samoan Isles? Ooh, I like that. They both sort of approach it in the same way, like they're both sort of referencing what's going to happen, so they both sort of spoil the thing. I say go with the new guy. Madison Square Garden would be the thing. You got there's a part of me that would actually really prefer Cody to win that title at Madison Square Garden, but it's, you know, you can only pack a fourth of the people in Madison Square Garden that you can in the stadium. So I think WrestleMania is the way to go. WrestleCram has a good question here. He says, we kept hearing at the WrestleMania 40 kickoff press show of the new WWE, but can they truly erase the names of Brock Lesnar and Vince McMahon from the record books? I don't think they need to erase them from the record books. I don't think they need to, like, look, you can't. Obviously, you can't. It's historical. It's in the record. You can't take them out, right? I mean, they can attempt to do with those guys what they did with Chris Benoit, like on the network. Just don't refer to them by name. Don't allow their names to be searched. That'd be a little bit on the weird side, though. Like Benoit, that's a bit easier because he went from WCW, came over to WWE, and it wasn't like he was, honestly, with Benoit, he wasn't really one of the top guys. Yeah, he won the title, but Vince just wanted to see if he can run with that guy. There were other names much bigger than him at the same time. They were trying to make him when he won the title. Anyways, I'm sort of getting off topic here. Brock was the guy for a very long time. He broke Taker's streak. Vince McMahon won the Rumble, won the championship. He was the lead main villain for like a decade or so, probably more when you think about it. So I don't know. Can you erase him from history? No, but you can, as a company, not embrace the history as much. You can elect to not necessarily run video packages emphasizing the history of WrestleMania. We all get what is behind the title. You can emphasize the history of Bruno Sammartino. They have elected to be cool with Hulk Hogan's controversies, and they've embraced him again as part of their historical record. And I guess they're just going to go ahead and do that now. And so, I mean, I kind of feel like more than Brock, more than Vince, Stone Cold, The Rock, the Attitude Era, you can look, I know how pivotal Mr. McMahon was to the Attitude Era. I get that. But there were enough other stars there that they can conveniently leave him out if you want to emphasize guys like Austin, The Rock, Taker. So you can, I guess, emphasize the past in your current programming a lot less than maybe they have traditionally. And I think that their roster right now and where they're headed right now, it really makes me wonder if even from a corporate philosophy, when Triple H says we're entering the era of the new WWE, given behind the scenes what's been going on, what still remains in terms of rooting out a lot of those Vince McMahon guys, I fully expect a guy like a name like Bruce Pritchard probably to be gone by the end of the year. And so maybe they're making that delineation between the old and the new. And if that's the case, you don't need to really reference the past all that much. Or you can just show a couple of shots. You can show Macho Man Hogan. You can show, I guess at this point, still probably Ultimate Warrior, even though, you know, you can debate whether or not they should. Same with Hulk Hogan, but they are doing that. Hulk Hogan and Andre, Hulk Hogan and Rock. You can emphasize things that exclude Brock Lesnar and Vince McMahon while looking to the future. Honestly, you don't have to look at the past at all. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to. At this point, Roman's name is in the conversation with Hogan's reign, and it's in the conversation with Bruno Sammartino's reign. Bruno's got a pretty spotless track record, so you can emphasize, you can go all the way back there and emphasize that stuff, especially when you look at that family tree of the bloodline. Like, it runs all the way back to, like, a long time ago. And let's move on here. King Queen Halen says, do you think Bayley versus Io is a one and done or a series? My heart says series. My head says probably series as well. I could see Bayley and Io revisiting this, especially if Bayley wins, which I kind of feel like she's going to. Similarly, Hunked Off John, let's see if I can do this seamlessly. Perfect. Says, why does Bayley versus Io get no love from WWE's marketing team? What am I missing? It's unfortunate, but I feel like probably they have the analytics, the marketing statistics, if you will, whatever they call them, the analytics, to illustrate that Rhea and Becky are probably bigger, more well-known names than Bayley and Io. Bianca Belair is probably up there in that space as well. I think personally that Bayley and Io is going to be like, it could contend for match of the entire WrestleMania event. And I really, really love the story there. That being said, I understand from a marketing standpoint why it would make more business sense to focus on the names that have a higher, I think it's called Q score, which is simply like people who are more recognizable than other people. because they put a shit ton of resources behind Rhea, a lot of resources behind Becky, and those are amazing performers. They have absolutely delivered. Rhea and Charlotte gave me the match of WrestleMania last year. But yeah, I kind of feel like it's probably just a dollars and cents thing. Io and Bayley is a really phenomenal story, and I wish it did get more love from their marketing team. But I kind of feel like it just has to do with like name value at this point. Tanner's got a tough one. Says favorite entrance music from the Jim Johnston era. Man, this is a terrible answer, but my favorite, oh wow, my favorite, well, I'm going to get away from the obvious answers because obviously Austin's theme, DX's theme, all that stuff from the Attitude Era that Jim Johnston came up with was outstanding, right? He knocked it out of the park. He was the soundtrack of my college years, right? All that stuff's great. Maybe, just maybe, my favorite Jim Johnston track was the last one he did for WWE, which was Baron Corbin's theme song called End of Days. It's absolutely phenomenal. If you guys who paid attention to any of my gaming stuff remember, I had the Robserver recreate that song as Sad Last Days for Steve Thunder's theme song. It is just a really, really phenomenal song. It's a straight up song. The CFO $sign era, I'm going to say my favorite song from them. A lot of good ones, but nothing to me beats Aleister Black's theme song. That song is just absolutely killer. Asuka's theme song also was really, really phenomenal. A lot of really good CFO $sign songs. Def Rebel. Oh man, I know Def Rebel's had a lot of good ones. Hold on, let me see if I can find this. All right, so I'm pretty sure that Def Rebel did Io Shirai, Io Sky's theme song, and that's going to be their best. If they actually did that, then that's their best. Otherwise, it's like that and Roman Reigns's, which is kind of just, it's got Succession vibes to it. So yeah, that's probably my list there. Ethan SN says, does Bayley versus Io get the night one main event? No, it should, but it won't. It's probably going to be a tag Roman Reigns and The Rock versus Cody and Seth Rollins. If that WrestleMania XL trailer teaser thing was to be believed, I feel like that's going to be the night one main event, and then Cody Roman will be night two. Braden Loader says, after his release from TNA, where do you think is the best landing spot for Scott D'Amore? I mentioned this when we talked about it on Going In Raw. I feel like the best landing spot for Scott D'Amore is going to be based solely on what he really wants to do. If he's happy with like, a producer / writer gig, or a producing gig in WWE, like a Jeremy Borash type role, then, or a talent relations type role, like apparently the talent, which apparently like WWE needs some new talent relations people. But I can't think of a better name, but like, if the rumor is true that he was, interested potentially in purchasing TNA, he might want total control of a place, of a promotion. And if that's the case, then working for WWE or working for AEW, even like, being the head of Ring of Honor or whatever, that's not going to be something that he's going to be into. He's probably going to try to start his own promotion on a bigger level. From what I understand, he's got like a wrestling school or a promotion like in Canada or something, but he'd probably want to start something new rather than be hired by somebody else. So I don't know. I honestly have no idea what the guy wants to do. But anybody in wrestling, be really lucky to have him. Blake Whitehouse says, with all the L's Triple H has been taken when it comes to signing big free agents, what does he need to go? What does he need to do to go from 0 Riz to 100 Riz? Oh, man. He does such a good job with who he has. I would say just stay the course. And then when it comes time for more, look, he was in a bad spot when it came to Jay White. From what I understand, the reports were WWE was on a hiring freeze during the Jay White free agency period, so he kind of had no option but to go to AEW. Will Ospreay had that pre-existing relationship with AEW. He loved the idea of doing a stadium show. And I think, honestly, at Ospreay's age, AEW is not a terrible idea for him to build his brand on cable television here in America. Get the Wembley All-In thing out of the way, and then he'll come to WWE. Okada is an interesting one. Apparently, his relationship with the Young Bucks, his pre-existing relationship with AEW seemingly is a thing that's brought him to sign to AEW. Plus, apparently, he'll still be able to work some New Japan stuff, which I'm sure he's probably happy with as well. So that was an interesting one, but I don't know. I'll completely honest. I love Okada, and I would have preferred as a fan to see him in WWE. I don't really feel like any of those three names were as big of a loss as a lot of people sort of seem to think. The Mercedes one, I understand they just couldn't get together on whatever, the money, whatever it was. And then she decided to go to AEW, which is a pretty big risk on her part because they don't have a great track record booking women. But I don't know. They've got a loaded roster the way they are. And if you look at NXT, it is stacked and loaded with great names that WWE can turn into stars because they're a machine at this point. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what the future holds for additional free agents. Eastside says, do you think it's possible that the behind-the-scenes stuff with Rock and Triple H could bleed over, cause them to work themselves into a shoot, and make any possible working relationship between Rock and Triple H unlikely? I kind of doubt it. I don't know. Maybe I'm a weird optimist, but they've been through so much together. They've got that relationship down from the Attitude Era, and I think Triple H is a man who understands business. So, and he's a guy who worked under Vince for how many years? I'm sure whatever situation that exists now is probably light years better than being under Vince. I can't believe it any other way. I think if you look at that press event, you see the role Triple H had there. You see the role Triple H had this past Friday on SmackDown. That dude's got to be pretty happy. He's got to be pretty happy. I think those are probably decent names and minds to work with. I really do. The Chris Hype says Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre for the world title, or Seth Rollins versus Gunther title for title. Drew McIntyre is doing some of the best work in WWE right now, so I'm going to go ahead and give the edge to Seth versus Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre wins. Grim Biggie Benny says, who's your all-time Star Trek starting crew? You can pick any characters in any movie or show. Obviously, at the science officer position, how about this? At the first officer position, you got to go with Spock. At the captain position, you got to go with Cisco. Ops, you got to go with Data. Security, you got to go with Worf. Engineering, you got to go with probably Scotty. Scotty really was a miracle worker. Probably Scotty. That's a hard one because LaForge is there. No, you know what? No. Engineering, you go with Stamets. I would go with Stamets for engineering. That guy was working with spores and Discovery. I love Discovery. And then at navigation, probably Chekhov. No, wait, who was at navigation? Sulu. Oh yeah, you go with Sulu for navigation. You go with Sulu at the helm. And then the doctor. Hey, you know who I'd go with for doctor? I'd go with Pulaski. No, engineering. Engineering, you got to go. Oh, man. O'Brien, though. No, you go with Stamets. Transporter, who's working the transport chief, it's O'Brien. I love O'Brien. You got to put him on your ship, man. Whatever you're doing, you need O'Brien in there. We'll end on this one. Actually, no, there's one other we're going to rank. And we're going to do Money Mike Productions. 316 says, what do you see for the future of TNA wrestling now that Scott D'Amore was outed? Not good. Not good. I'm just telling you, it seemed like that dude was the glue that held that place together. I don't know that it might be a completely different situation by the end of this year there in TNA. It might be a completely different situation there, man. Mike Sauer says favorite condiment, mustard for him. Mustard for me too, man. I love me some yellow mustard. Don't need that spicy stuff. Love me some yellow mustard. We'll end on this one. Mike Awesome says, serious question. Are you and James Hetfield from Metallica related? Not that I know of. I've heard that. I've heard Mark Wahlberg. Of course, I've heard John Cena. I've also heard, I forgot. There's a comedian that people say looks like me too. So no, I understand. I know I've seen the pictures. I know the dude we kind of look similar. If I could get some of that Metallica money, I'd be super happy. But no, as far as I know, me and Mr. Hetfield are not related. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Ask WrestleJuice. Thanks, everybody, for your questions. I really appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you guys around.